Hello and welcome to another session on AS Telekilaas for Business Studies. My name is Yasas and I'm from Center for Higher Secondary Education. Today we are going to discuss another set of topics as a quick revision from your Unit 1, as you can see from the first part on marketing objectives and strategy. So this is from the first part of your Unit 1, and today's session we are going to talk about some important topics on marketing. And before I go to that, you could scan this QR code to put your details so that it will be marked as your attendance. So please make sure you scan this QR code or to go to this particular link so that you can mark your attendance for today's class. Right. So going back, these are the three topics that we are going to discuss today from your 1.3.3. We are going to discuss about marketing objectives, and we are going to talk about the concept of product life cycle, which is an important part of your marketing part of the topic. And lastly, we are going to talk about the product portfolio analysis, or the well-known BCG Matrix. Right. So let's start with the first part, marketing objectives. Now, before we move on to marketing objectives, tell me, what do we mean by an objective? What is your understanding? Because remember, we always talk about the importance of definitions. So, before we move on to the definition of marketing objectives, what do we mean by an objective? Okay, as all you know, an objective means a target or a goal that we are trying to achieve within a particular span of time. So, if that is the meaning of an objective, what do we mean by a marketing objective in simple terms? So, it's very clear what we mean by a marketing objective is a target or a goal that a business is trying to achieve through its marketing function. So, that is the basic meaning or the understanding of what we mean by a marketing objective. But of course, I have taken this definition from your textbook. Like I always say, please make sure your definitions, when you study for your knowledge part in your AS or in A2, those definitions should be from a valid textbook. And now that you have been given the Edexcel textbook, please make sure you follow these definitions or you study those definitions which are on that textbook. Right. So this is the definition you can see from the textbook that I have taken. Marketing objectives are the goals that a business attempts to achieve through its marketing activities. So as you can see here, the word goals is there because that is what we mean by an objective, and through its marketing activities. So this is the typical definition that you can write if there is a question about marketing objective. So a goal or a target that a business is trying to achieve through its marketing function. Right. So speaking of these marketing objectives, you need to remember these objectives may differ from organization to another. Now say for example, if we talk about a small organization or a small business or a medium scale business, their objectives might not be the same compared to a big multinational company. But of course, that doesn't mean that they should always be different, or it doesn't mean that it always be the same as well. So it differs depending on the type of the organization or the size of the organization, the purpose of the organization. There could be so many reasons why marketing objectives may differ from one organization to another. And also you can see the second one, another key thing that we need to understand, marketing objectives may vary or may change from time to time based on the market requirements or based on the market needs. Now, say in the case of a recession or in a case of a new competitor coming in. So likewise, the marketing objectives are not a definite set of things that can be applied to all the organizations. It may differ from organization to another, and even within the same organization, they may differ from time to time depending on the market requirements. Right. The overall purpose of the marketing function of an organization obviously is to facilitate sales. That is the thing. But you know, or you need to remember, marketing is not just about sales. There are so many other things. It's a broad aspect, but of course, one of the key role of marketing is to facilitate selling part of the product. But of course, in line with that part, we can consider some of the common objectives which could be mostly used in organizations, and there are 3 such common objectives that can be considered as common marketing objectives that you would see in your textbook, and one of them is to increase market share. You know that every organization would want to go and try to capture the market as much as possible. Therefore, most of the organizations, big or small, may have this particular objective of increasing market share. And the second one is to increase revenue, because you know that more revenue would eventually lead to more sales. Therefore, we say that revenue maximization in another term, where the businesses would want to increase or try and increase their revenue through various means of marketing in order to increase their profits, which could be another marketing related objective or a marketing objective for the organization as increasing revenue. And third one, building a brand, because you know how important for an organization to build a brand so that they could create the brand loyalty, and of course that is a particular topic that you already have studied in your AS. You know therefore the importance of a brand for a business. Therefore, another common marketing objective an organization might have is to increase or to build a brand. So these are the common, but keep in mind, this doesn't mean that these are the only objectives the company might have as marketing objectives, but these are some common marketing objectives that usually businesses may have. Okay, right. So then we will go to the second concept that we are going to discuss, which is another very important part of your marketing topic in Unit 1, the product life cycle concept. Now, I'm sure you all remember what we mean by a product life cycle. So once again, let's look at the definition. Of course, it is an important part of the marketing mix. You know that the 4 P's, the price, place, product, and the promotion. So out of these 4 P's, product is one of the most important aspect of the marketing mix. So the product life cycle is an integral part of that product aspect of the marketing mix. And going to the definitions, this is how we could define what we mean by a product life cycle. Shows the different stages that a product passes through over time and the sales that can be expected at each stage. Now you can see that I have highlighted some important part of this definition. It shows different stages, and also it shows those stages of a product that passes through over time, and also along with that it shows the sales that can be expected at each stage. So this is a definition that you can write for knowledge part if there is a question on the product life cycle. So the most important thing about the product life cycle is therefore what are those different stages. So let's move on and see what are those different stages. Now as you can see, there is a tiny part here which I have mentioned with a line where you can see there are no sales, but beyond this point you can see the sales will be picking up gradually, and it goes to a level where the sales would become stagnated, and then eventually the sales would start to fall. So that is the general, remember this is the general product life cycle. I'll come to that later, why I said the word general when it comes to the product life cycle. So let's look at what are these different stages that you can see on this product life cycle. Right. So as you know, the first part or the first stage of a product life cycle is research and development. And this is the time where the company or the organization would develop the product in closed doors or back of their organization without the product being introduced to the market. Now, any mobile phone company would be doing this before they launch the product or before they launch the next version of their product behind the closed doors of their research and development department, and that is why you can see zero sales. Because during this stage, the product has not yet been introduced to the market. As a result, there would not be a single sale from that particular product for the organization, hence the sales would be zero. But then you can see the sales starts slowly picking up during the next stage called the introduction stage. Now, this is where the product is being introduced to the market, where the company would start telling the customers in the market, hey, we have a product, right? So that is why you can see the sales are relatively lower because the product is relatively unknown in the market because it has just been introduced to the market. And then you can see clearly the next stage, the sales starts to be quite faster, or there's an aggressive increase, a rapid increase of the sales in the next stage, and that is the stage we call as the growth stage. And you can see the sales start to grow pretty fast, and the company would be heavily doing advertising, promotion, and increasing their distribution networks, which has started in the introduction. But of course, in this level, they will keep on intensifying because the organization gets a rapid growth in the sales. And the next stage what we have is the maturity stage. Now, this is an important part that you need to understand because we talk about another term along with the maturity stage called the saturation as well. So how do we talk about these two terms? Now, you can see here, when it comes to passing this green line, the sales starts to slow down, right? You can see there is now here you have a rapid growth, but when it comes to here, the sales will start to fall. And when it comes to this level, the peak, the sales will be stagnated. So the entire range is what we call the maturity stage, of which saturation happens here. Because there is no further growth, it's a stagnation that happens in the market where the new competitors will have an intense rivalry for the product. Therefore, the sales growth will be stopped or will be saturated. Therefore, that is the stage or the area which we call the saturation, which comes in the maturity stage. And then if the business or if the product goes through the next stage, as you all know, you can see the sales now starts gradually falling, and that is the stage which we call as the declining stage. So these are the main parts of the product life cycle that you need to know, and every product usually goes through this kind of stages, and that is why from a product point of view of the marketing mix, it is important for the business to know about or to have an understanding about these stages. And then we have a question here. Now, we know that the fundamental objective of a business is to make profit. So which business would want to see their product will go to a decline? I don't think any business who wants profit as their fundamental objectives would want to see their product goes into a declining stage. Therefore, what is the option the companies have? What they can do when the product reaches the maturity, where they know that the product would then go to the declining, and if they want to avoid that declining, what they could do? This is the answer. We talk about this concept of extension strategies, extending the product life cycle. So when the product reaches the maturity stage, before it goes into the declining and goes out of the market, the organizations or the businesses would try to go into these kind of extension strategies where a new product life cycle starts before it reaches the declining stage. And that is what we call as the extension strategies or extending the product life cycle. Then you would have the question, how companies would do that? What are the practical methods of a company applying those extension strategies into a product? Well, these are the strategies. One thing, product adjustments. You could do some rebranding, you can bring some new features, or you could change the packaging, or you could change the labeling. These kind of things can happen under product adjustments. Or else, you could intensify your promotion. Like I said, you could try and come up with a new advertising campaign. You would try to do some kind of a rebranding so that the people would consider this particular product as something new, which would also help to extend the product life cycle. And these are the two things that you have in your textbook. But remember, apart from these two, there is another important extension strategies that I would like to talk about. Market extension, meaning we go into a new market. What is the most common method of going into a new market? International business. International. You go international. If you see there is no further growth in the domestic market, obviously the business could consider seeking some international markets, and they could look for exploring some new markets outside their boundaries of the country, which also help a business to go for extension strategies, which is the main part that you will discuss in your unit 4 of your A2, international business. So these are some of the common things that companies can extend their product life cycle without going into a declining stage. Right. So now come to the other important part of the product life cycle, benefits and drawbacks. So these are the typical benefits of having a product life cycle or using a product life cycle for a business in terms of a product point of view. Helps to understand marketing and development of products, because you know, like we said, if the product is in the introduction stage, what the companies do or they should be doing may not be the same as what they should be doing during the maturity stage, or it might be slightly different from the growth stage. So where the product is in the life cycle would help the organization to understand marketing or development of product, what they should be doing. Basically, that answer can be looked at by understanding where the product is in its life cycle. And of course, as you know, it's a very simple method. You just draw a diagram and you try to understand what is the position our product is taking on its life cycle. So it's a pretty simplistic thing. And the next one, it would help businesses to forecast the demand for their products by knowing where the product is on its life cycle. Now, if we take the example here, we know that if your product is in the introduction stage, the next would be the growth that you could expect a large amount of sales. But as and when you go to the maturity stage, you know your sales would start to gradually fall or to become stagnated. So all these will help a business to forecast what sort of a demand the product would have in the market. And then we talk about the drawbacks. A common drawback that we talk about is it's difficult to foresee a transition in the product life cycle stages, because we will calculate the sales after some time, which means there is a lag, time gap. So by the time that we calculate the sales, and when you look at the product where it is on the life cycle, the product may have reached to the next level. So there is always a time gap between where we look at the sales and where the product is actually on the market or on the product life cycle. There may be a bit of a time gap. And also, not all products go through the same product life cycle. Now that is why I said not all the products have a similar product life cycle. Now, if I am to show you an example, if this is the general product life cycle, this might not be the case for all the products. Now, for example, some of the products might have this kind of a product life cycle. Now, you can see there's a clear difference between this product life cycle, which is a sort of a general product life cycle, and this one. So, what are the examples of this kind of a product life cycle? Think where it has a very short span of time compared to this kind of a long span. Think, one good example is technological industry or the IT products like mobile phones, for example. You know that how fast the next models of the mobile phones are being introduced into the market. If you look at products like Xiaomi or Samsung, for example, you know how quickly they keep on introducing their next product model or the models of their different product ranges into the market. So therefore, you cannot generalize that all the products will go through this kind of a general product life cycle. Some of them may have this kind of a shorter product life cycle. Hence, we say not all the products go through the same product life cycle. And the next one, just because the sales are slowing down may not necessarily mean the product has reached the declining stage, because you know that businesses will be hugely affected by external factors. Now, take the current situation, for example. Most of the organizations like the travel and tourism industry, the airline industry, they are facing a huge loss or drop of sales. So do you think that these airline industry or the tourism industry has gone into a declining stage? No. It is a typical reason for the current scenario that we all face, unfortunately, all over the world. Therefore, we need to understand, just because there is a slowdown in sales like we usually see in the declining stage, that does not necessarily mean the product is or product has reached the saturation, the product has reached the declining stage. Okay, and the last important concept that we are going to talk about is the BCG matrix. Now, what is meant by the BCG matrix? Now, you can see the word product portfolio, which means a range of products or a set of product lines. So what if a business has a range of products? Not just one or maybe two, but if they have maybe about 1,000 products. So if they have this kind of a range of products, how a company could take decisions with regard to their product aspect of the marketing mix? Because you can see the product life cycle might not that be appropriate for a company that has this kind of a range of products. So if a company has this kind of range, for example, Coca-Cola or Nestle or even Samsung, they have different mobile phone ranges, or Coca-Cola has so many different beverage products all over the world. So in order to manage these products, it is easier if they have this kind of a matrix or a tool which we consider as a product portfolio analysis, or a common product portfolio analysis is the BCG matrix. So these are the definitions that I would like to take you through. A collection of products or product lines that the business is currently marketing is what we mean by a product portfolio. So the product portfolio basically talks about a collection of products, like I said earlier, or a line of products. Now, what do you mean by a line of products? Now, line of product means for a company, they might have a similar type of products that they target in the market. Now, my best example that I can give you is Samsung mobile phones. Now, why I said Samsung is a good example of having different product lines or lines of product. Now, if you think about, or if you know about the Samsung mobile phone range, you know that they have the J series, and you know they have the A series, and you know they have the S series, and they have the Note series. And under each model or under each series or product lines, they have a lot of products. Therefore, this is a good example for you to understand what we mean by a product line. So, if a company has this kind of range of products, we could analyze and take important decisions by looking at where these products are, by putting it to a one single tool called the BCG matrix. And this is the definition that I have taken from the textbook on the BCG matrix, a 2x2 matrix model that analyzes the product portfolio. You know the meaning of product portfolio now, according to the growth rate and the market share of products within the market. So you know it's a grid, or it's a matrix which has 4 quadrants in 2 into 2 grids, and these 4 quadrants would be based on 2 variables, market share and market growth, right? So these are the definitions that you need to know in terms of the, or in relation to the product portfolio analysis, and this is the famous BCG matrix. And you can see it has those 2 variables, the market share and market growth, high and low, and based on that we have these 4 quadrants where the product portfolio analysis can be done for a company that has a different range of products, or a company that has different product lines. Now let me show you a practical example once again from Samsung. So as you know, Samsung has not only the mobile phone, they have their TVs, then they have their electronic appliances or electrical appliances, and they have the smartwatches, plus you know, or I don't know whether you know, Samsung even has office automation like scanners, photocopy machines and things like that. So this is an example of how these different portfolio of products of Samsung can be applied into a product life cycle and how we could identify those different areas. And speaking of the BCG matrix, there are 2 important things you need to understand why we are using the BCG matrix. One is to make the balanced product portfolio, to make sure that the business has a favorable set of portfolio that represent all the important quadrants rather than focusing on one single area, plus to take appropriate decisions depending on where the products are on its on the product the BCG matrix, depending on the quadrant that they represent. So I'll quickly take you through on the way how we can talk about the application of the product life cycle in terms of decision making. So if a product is in the question mark category, which is somewhat similar to the introduction stage of a product, obviously if the product has a potential in the market, the business would want to take them from the question marks to stars. And then they would try to hold the product as much as possible in the stars, and eventually it will go to a cash cow, where we say the cash cow is the position or the quadrant which gives the highest profit for a business, because you can see even though their market growth is low, they have the highest market share, which is similar to the maturity stage in the product life cycle. Therefore, cash cow, as the word itself says, generates the cash for the business in order to support the development of question marks. You can see those 2 meanings of the 2 types of arrows there. So the money that the business generates that from the cash cow products will go to support the question marks as well as to support the stars in order to try and consolidate their positions in the market. That is why you can see these 2 arrows go from the cash cows where the cash flow is flowing. So to development of question marks and for the holding or the consolidation of stars, the necessary funds will come from the cash cows. And then dogs products are the ones which has the low market share and the low market growth. And what does this mean? We have to divest. So the strategy here is, we say, harvesting, because we need to try and get as much as possible cash to support the question marks and stars. But the products which are there on the dogs category, the company has to decide whether we are going to continue, or is it really worth for a company to continue or to discontinue. Therefore, they would have to go for divesting. And even some of the question marks which might not have a potential, we have to go through a divesting where the business will have to stop the product. Okay. So lastly, you can quickly see the benefits of using a BCG matrix for marketing, or in terms of marketing. We can identify the revenue from cash cows to help question marks and stars. It's a useful tool to plan the product mix, the range of products of the company, and also to see which products are growing and which products should be divested, and balancing the portfolio, taking appropriate marketing decisions. And lastly, you can see the drawbacks of the BCG matrix. For a company that has a large product portfolio, like IKEA, for example, has over 9,000 different range of products, it might be quite difficult and also it might not reflect the market changes because it gives a snapshot, a sort of a picture of the current position only, and also it has no predictive value to see what sort of impact the external factors would give in to the portfolio, and also the product focuses only on 2 variables, but the success of a product portfolio may be attributed to so many other products. Okay, so these are the drawbacks of the BCG matrix. So once again, if you want to scan, please make sure that you do it, and then you could mark your attendance. And today we talked about 3 topics quite in brief: the marketing objectives, and then the product life cycle, and then the BCG matrix, the product portfolio analysis. And that's all for today. So do send us your questions that will be discussed in the next panel discussion. And until next class, take care and be safe.